Good morning, students. Today, we are going to study an important topic in C programming called C tokens and variables. Whenever we write a program, it is made up of small components such as keywords, variable names, constants, operators, symbols. So here, these basic components are known as tokens. We will also study about variables, which are used to store data during program execution. This topic is very important because every C program uses tokens and variables. By the end of this session, you will understand what are tokens, what are identifiers, variables, and the rules for naming identifiers and the different types of variables. Now we will see what are C tokens. So let us begin the concept of tokens. Like any small individual unit, you're going to call it as token. So tokens are the smallest individual units in C programming. They form the basic building blocks that make up your code. C has 6 types of tokens that work together to create functional programs. Just like as you know that in English, sentences are made of words, C programs are made up of tokens. Tokens are the basic building blocks of program. Like for example, let us look a small statement. Suppose if I'm going to define int x is equals to 10, this statement contains the following tokens. Int is a token, that is a keyword. X is an identifier. Equal to is an operator. 10 is a constant. Semicolon is a special symbol. Each of these is a separate token. So the different classification, like several categories: keywords, identifiers, variables, constants, operators, and special symbols. Identifiers, these are user-defined names for variables. Keywords, these are reserved words with fixed meaning. Variables, like where we are going to store that variable memory location for storing data. Now, we will see what is an identifier. So, identifiers are user-defined names of variables, constants, functions, and arrays. These are user-defined names that follow specific rules to ensure proper compilation and execution. So, like identifiers or user-defined names used to identify the variables, functions, arrays, structures, and constants. For example, suppose if I'm going to define total marks, it is a variable. It is an identifier. Student name, it is a variable. Student roll number, it is a user-defined name. So these names are chosen by the programmer. So when you're going to define an identifier, you should follow some set of rules. Like the first rule is can only contain alphanumeric characters. That means the identifiers can contain alphabets from capital A to capital Z, small a to small z, and 0 to 9 and underscore. The next one is first character. The first character must be an alphabet or underscore. The first character must be an alphabet or underscore. It cannot start with a digit. Suppose if I'm going to define name 1, it is valid. Underscore total, it is also valid. But if you're going to give one name, it is not a valid identifier. Why? Because it is starting from number. Okay. In the here you can see like one record, which is not a valid identifier. The next one is C is case sensitive. Case sensitive means like it is if it is both. Suppose if I'm going to define name in small case and name in capital case, both are different. Okay, so all these are considered as different identifiers. Cannot use keywords as identifiers. We cannot use keywords that are reserved words like int, float, return, which are defined by the C compiler. They cannot be used as identifiers. So like you can see here the valid examples like name, marks, all these are valid examples. Now we will have a look of keywords. Keywords are reserved words with fixed meanings that cannot be changed. They serve as basic building blocks for program statements and must be written in lowercase. You cannot use keywords as variable names, constant names, or any identifier. Like you can have defined like reserved words. So according to ANSYS, there are 32 keywords defined. They are predefined. So keywords or reserved words in C that has special predefined meanings. These words are already understood by the compiler. Therefore, we cannot use them as variable names. So some of the examples like int, char, float, if, all these are defined as keywords. Why these keywords are important? Keywords are used to build program logic. Suppose if I'm going to give if x is greater than y, here if is a keyword used for decision making. Suppose if I'm going to define return 0, here return is a keyword. Okay, so these are the keywords which are defined as reserved words. Each and every word is having some specific meaning. Now, let us understand what are variables and one of the most important concepts in programming. So, a variable is a name of memory location used to store data. Variables are changeable, allowing you to modify their values during program execution. So, whenever a program needs to store values such as numbers, characters, or decimal values, it uses variables. Suppose if I'm going to define int age is equals to 20. Here, age is a variable name and 20 is the value stored in the memory. So why called variable? Because the value can change during program execution. Suppose I am going to define age is equals to 20, age is equals to 25. The stored variable changed from 20 to 25. So variables are also identifiers. So they must follow the same rules which are defined for the identifiers. As we have already seen, identifiers, they must start with alphabets or underscore. It should not contain any reserved words. It is a combination of alphabets, numbers. Okay, likewise, same thing that applies to the variable. So you're having some certain rules to follow. Same thing for the naming the rules. The length limit. Variable names can contain up to around 30 characters depending on the compiler support. Okay, so it must start with an alphabet. No special characters or spaces, cannot be keyword, and all these are defined for the defining a variable. So variables can be reused many times throughout the program. They hold the values that can be accessed and modified as needed during program execution. Now we will see uh, how we'll see some of the examples of variables. Here, when you see the length limit, so variable can contain maximum of 30 characters and must be up to 8 characters in some compilers. And the starting character, it should must include only alphabets and numbers, but must start with an alphabet. Special characters, only underscore is acceptable. And if it comes to reserved words cannot be used for variable names. Now you can see some valid examples like min, student name, max, class mark. All these are some of the examples of variables. Now we will see like how to declare and assign variables. So variables, before using a variable in C, it must be declared. So declaration, also variables must be declared before use. The general format, variables with separates variables with commas and ends with a semicolon. So before using this, declaration tells the compiler about the variable name, the data type, and the memory requirement. The syntax is data type followed by variable 1, comma variable 2, so on, and ends with a semicolon. So if you want to declare multiple variables, you can just give int x, comma y, comma z, and ends with a semicolon. Now I want to assign some values. Values are assigned using the assignment operator equal to. Like I want to define x is equals to 100, a is equals to some 12.5. Likewise, you can assign the values. So here initialization, when it comes to initialization, we can declare and assign value at the same time. Like int x is equals to 100. Here we are declaring int x. X is an integer variable of and it is storing 100 as its value. Now you can see three examples over here. Int x is equals to 100, where the value of x is equals to 100 and the data type is integer. And the second one, float, a is equals to 12.25. Here the value of a is equals to 12.25 and its data type is float. Now we will see the different types of variables in C. Variables in C programming, it supports different variable types based on their scope and lifetime. Understanding these types help you to write efficient and organized code. So variables are classified into based on scope, lifetime, and storage behavior. Main types are local variables, global variables, and static variables. So local variables are defined or inside the function or blocks. They are accessible only within the defined scope. If when it comes to global variables, they are defined outside the functions, accessible throughout the entire program. When it takes static variables, they preserve values between function calls and they are initialized only once. So the difference between local variables and local variables are local to that particular function, whereas global variables, they are defined outside the function and they're accessible throughout the entire program. Now we will see individually what are local variables and global variables. A local variable is a variable which is defined inside a function or a block. It can be used like inside the function. If you see here, you're going to have I have defined int a comma b comma c. Since it is defined in the main function, okay, these a, b, c are called as local variables. They cannot be used outside the main. So what are the main characteristics of these things are? They exist only inside the block. The values, they are destroyed after function ending. They are used for temporary calculations. When it comes to global variable, a global variable is defined outside functions, usually at the top, hold values throughout the program lifetime, and they're accessible inside any function. A global variable, so it is declared outside all functions, usually at the top of the program. It can be accessed by all functions. See here, if I'm going to define int g, it is defined above the main, which is a global variable, and I can use it inside the function g is equals to some 100, where g is the global variable. So what is the main characteristic thing is here? It is available throughout the program and the lifetime continues till the program ends. So when it comes to the priority rule, if local and global variables have same name, the local variable gets priority inside the function. Now, we will see about the static variables. What are the static variables? So here, if you see here, the static variables, like if you see, a static variable keeps its value between function calls. Like I'm going to shift from one function to another function, it is going to retain its value. It is going to retain its value. So a static variable keeps its value between function calls. Normally, local variables are created and destroyed each time a function runs. But whereas the static variables, they are initialized only once, retain previous value, and exist throughout the program execution. Suppose if I'm going to define it as static variable, I have to define it as static some int, some count is equal to 0. The main characteristics of the static variable are the memory is allocated once, like memory allocation, space allocated in the computer main memory. automatically initialize. Like when it comes to initialization, it is automatically initialized to 0 if no value is given, but not with garbage value. So persistence, it is going to preserve its value between the function calls. Scope, the scope remains local if it is declared inside the function. Actually, the difference between auto, you're having the auto is by default, it is a local variable. The default between auto and static is both of them, they are used defined within the function, but only thing is in the static, the value, it is going to preserve its value even between the function calls. Okay. So suppose the keeps it's going to retain its value. So I think like this is a brief example between local variables and global variables. So when you're going to use this, like today, let us summarize today's lecture. We have discussed about C tokens, where tokens are the smallest individual units of a program, such as keywords, identifiers, constants, and operators. And we have seen about variables and what are the name, where they are stored in the memory location. And we have seen about the different types of variables, local variables, global variables, and static variables. So understanding tokens and variables, which is an essential because every C program depends on them. So in the next this thing, we'll discuss about what are the data types, constants, and operators. So practice writing a valid. So after this session, you can practice writing valid variable names and declarations. Thank you.